The fluorescent lights of Memorial Hospital's fourth floor burned into Tanya Brooks's tired eyes as she checked her phone for the third time. Room 437. Mrs. Patterson's retirement flowers. Simple task. But after 16 hours on her feet, managing patient charts, calming frightened families, and assisting with 2 emergency admissions, simple felt complicated. Her navy blue scrubs were wrinkled, her natural hair pulled back in a hasty bun, and her feet screamed inside her white sneakers. She just wanted to drop off these flowers, change out of her uniform and collapse into bed. Tomorrow was supposed to be her day off, but they'd already called asking her to cover someone's shift. Again. Tanya pushed through the heavy door, arms full of the bright yellow sunflower arrangement that the nursing staff had pooled money to buy. "Mrs. Patterson, I brought you something to brighten." She stopped. Wrong room. The man in the bed wasn't Mrs. Patterson. He was thin, almost skeletal, with gray hair that had clearly once been dark brown. His skin had that pale yellowish tint that Tanya had learned to recognize during her 5 years as a nurse. Liver failure. Advanced stages. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow but steady, and the machines around him beeped their monotonous rhythm. But what struck Tanya most was the silence. No television playing. No cards taped to the wall. No flowers on the windowsill. No family photos on the rolling table. No personal items at all except a worn leather wallet on the nightstand. The room felt hollow. Empty of everything except medical equipment and the dying man within it. Tanya should have left. Should have backed out quietly, checked the room number, found 437, completed her task and gone home. But something held her there. Maybe it was the complete absence of any sign that anyone cared about this person. Maybe it was the way his hand rested on the thin white blanket, fingers slightly curled, as if reaching for something that wasn't there. "I'm sorry," she whispered, stepping back toward the door. His eyes opened. They were blue, surprisingly clear despite his obvious illness, and they locked onto hers with an intensity that made her freeze. "Don't be," he said, his voice rough but steady. "You're the first person who said anything to me in 3 days." Tanya's nursing instincts kicked in before her common sense could stop her. "Are you in pain? Do you need me to call someone?" "No." He tried to sit up slightly, wincing. "The nurses come in, check the machines, leave. The doctors review charts from the doorway. Everyone's very professional. Very efficient. No one talks. She should leave. This wasn't her patient. This wasn't her job." But Tanya found herself setting the sunflowers down on his windowsill instead. "Well," she said, pulling the visitor's chair closer to his bed, "I'm Tanya. And I just worked a double shift, so I'm too tired to be professional right now." The corners of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Preston. Preston Caldwell. And I'm dying, so I'm too tired to pretend I'm not glad you're here." The honesty was jarring. Most people danced around the topic of death, especially in hospitals. They used phrases like "fighting this" or "staying positive," even when everyone knew the truth. But Preston Caldwell spoke about dying the way someone might mention having a headache. "What's your diagnosis?" Tanya asked, then immediately regretted the clinical question. "Sorry? Nurse brain. You don't have to answer that." "End-stage liver disease," Preston said matter-of-factly. "Cirrhosis, complications from years of stress and poor health choices. 4 to 6 months they tell me. Maybe less. They moved me here from the ICU 2 days ago because there's nothing else they can do except manage comfort." "I'm sorry. Are you?" He studied her face. "You don't know me. I could be a terrible person." Tanya thought about that. "Are you? A terrible person?" Preston was quiet for a long moment, his blue eyes distant. "I built a business empire. Made billions in commercial real estate development. Worked 90-hour weeks for 40 years. My wife left me 15 years ago because I missed our anniversary 5 times in a row. My daughter Lauren stopped calling 8 years ago after I forgot her birthday for the 3rd time. My son." He paused, pain crossing his face that had nothing to do with physical illness. "My son died in a car accident 12 years ago, and I was in Singapore closing a deal when it happened. Didn't even make it to the funeral on time." The beeping of the heart monitor filled the silence. "I have $3.2 billion in various accounts and investments," Preston continued, his voice flat. "I own 17 properties around the world. My company employs over 4,000 people. And when I die, probably sometime in the next few months, there will be a brief obituary in the business section. My lawyer will execute my will. And no one will come to my funeral because there's no one left who actually cares whether I'm alive or dead." Tanya felt her chest tighten. She'd seen lonely deaths before. Elderly patients whose families had stopped visiting, homeless individuals with no emergency contacts, people who'd outlived everyone they loved. But something about Preston's story hit differently. This wasn't someone who'd lost people to time or circumstance. This was someone who'd chosen work over relationships so consistently that those relationships had withered away. "Your daughter," Tanya said carefully. "Lauren. Have you tried reaching out? My lawyer sent her a message when I was admitted." She didn't respond. Preston's jaw tightened. "I don't blame her. I was a terrible father. Present in body maybe 20% of the time, present in attention maybe 5%. She needed a dad and I gave her a trust fund instead. It's not too late to try again. Isn't it?" Preston looked at her. "What do I say? Sorry I missed your entire childhood, but I'm dying now, so let's bond." That's not fair to her. Tanya pulled her legs up, tucking them under her in the chair. This was definitely not professional behavior. She should leave, go find room 437, deliver the flowers, clock out. But she stayed. "My grandmother raised me," she said quietly. "My mom had me at 17 and wasn't ready to be a parent, so Grandma Ruth took over. She worked 2 jobs her whole life. Housekeeper at a hotel during the day, cleaner at an office building at night. I barely saw her too, if I'm being honest. She'd leave before I woke up for school, get home after I was supposed to be asleep." That sounds hard. It was. But you know what I remember most? Every Sunday, no matter how tired she was, Grandma Ruth made time. We'd go to church, then she'd make dinner, and we'd sit at that little kitchen table and she'd ask about my week. Really ask. Really listen. She didn't have much time, but the time she gave me was complete. No distractions. No phone. Just her attention. Preston was quiet, absorbing this. "What I'm saying is," Tanya continued, "it's not about the quantity of time. Sometimes it's about the quality. If you reached out to your daughter with real honesty, real vulnerability, maybe she'd listen. And maybe she wouldn't. Maybe I hurt her too much. Maybe. But at least you'd have tried." The machines beeped. A cart rattled past in the hallway. Somewhere down the corridor a phone rang. "Why are you being kind to me?" Preston asked suddenly. "You don't know me. I could be lying about all of this." Tanya smiled. "You're not lying. I've been a nurse long enough to recognize truth when I hear it. And I'm being kind because that's what people should do for each other. Especially when someone's alone." "I've been alone for a long time," Preston said softly. "I just didn't notice until I ended up here." Tanya glanced at the clock on the wall. She'd been in this room for 20 minutes. Mrs. Patterson's flowers were still undelivered. Her body ached with exhaustion. But leaving felt wrong. "I should go," she said, not moving. "You should," Preston agreed. "Those flowers aren't for me." Tanya stood, stretching her sore back. "They could be. If you want them." Preston looked at the bright yellow sunflowers, then back at Tanya. "Why would you do that?" "Because everyone deserves flowers. Especially people who are alone." She smiled. "Besides, Mrs. Patterson has about 9 arrangements already. She won't miss these. You'll get in trouble." "I'll risk it." For the first time since she'd entered the room, Preston smiled. A real smile that reached his eyes and made him look 10 years younger. "You're unusual, Tanya Brooks." "I'll take that as a compliment." She headed toward the door, then paused. "I work tomorrow afternoon. If you want company, I could stop by. Just for a few minutes." Preston's expression shifted. Hope and disbelief mixed together. "You don't have to do that." "I know. But would you like me to?" He nodded, not trusting his voice. Tanya walked out of room 427, found room 437, explained to Mrs. Patterson that the flowers had been delayed, promised to bring some tomorrow, and finally made it to her car. As she drove home through the dark city streets, she couldn't stop thinking about Preston Caldwell. His empty room. His honest admission of failure. His loneliness. She'd seen dying patients before. Hundreds of them. But this one felt different. This one felt like it mattered. "Before we continue, I want to ask you something important. Have you ever ignored someone who needed help because it was inconvenient? Have you ever walked past someone struggling because stopping would make you late?" Tanya could have just kept walking. She could have delivered those flowers and forgotten about the lonely man in room 427. But she didn't. And that choice changed everything. If this story is touching your heart, please subscribe and comment below. Tell me about a time when you stopped to help someone even when it was hard. Your story might inspire someone else to do the same. Tanya's alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., but she was already awake. She'd spent most of the night thinking about Preston Caldwell. About his empty room and his admission that no one had really talked to him in days. about the way his face had changed when she offered to visit again. Her studio apartment was small but tidy. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains, falling across her nursing textbooks stacked on the kitchen counter. Advanced patient care, medical ethics, healthcare administration. Books she studied during rare free moments, dreaming of eventually becoming a nurse practitioner. But those dreams felt distant when she looked at the bills piled next to the textbooks. Student loans from her 2 years at community college before she'd had to quit and work full-time. Medical bills from her grandmother's final months in hospice 3 years ago. Credit card debt from living paycheck to paycheck while trying to keep up with everything. $47,000 total. A mountain she couldn't see the top of. Tanya pushed those thoughts away and got ready for work. She braided her hair neatly, put on fresh scrubs, bright green today, her favorite color, and stopped at the corner coffee shop on her way to the hospital. 2 coffees. One for her, one for Preston. Black because she didn't know how he took it, and she could grab sugar and cream from the nurse's station. Room 427 felt different in the afternoon light. Less shadowy but somehow even emptier. Preston was awake, staring at the ceiling, the sunflowers she'd left yesterday still bright on the windowsill. "You came back," he said, and Tanya heard the surprise in his voice. As if he'd convinced himself overnight that she wouldn't. "I said I would." She held up the coffee cups. "I brought reinforcements. I didn't know how you take your coffee, so I brought the basics." Preston struggled to sit up more, and Tanya immediately moved to help him, adjusting his pillows and raising the bed. "Nurse instincts. Just black is fine," he said. "I used to drink it with cream and 3 sugars, but that was when I needed the energy boost. Now it doesn't matter much." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping coffee. The bitter warmth felt grounding. "Tell me about your work," Preston said finally. "What made you become a nurse?" Tanya settled into the visitor's chair. "My grandmother. When she got sick, I watched the nurses who took care of her. Some were just going through the motions, checking boxes, moving on. But there were a few who really saw her. Who talked to her like a person, not a patient. Who held her hand when she was scared. I wanted to be like them." "Is that when you started school?" "After she passed. I used the little bit of money she left me for community college. Made it through 2 years before I ran out of funds and had to stop. Been working full-time since, trying to save up to finish. But every time I get a little ahead, something happens. Car repair. Emergency room visit. Life." Preston nodded slowly. "The system makes it hard for people to climb up." "It does. But I'm not giving up. Just taking longer than I planned." Tanya sipped her coffee. "What about you? When did you know you wanted to be in real estate?" And Preston talked. Really talked. About growing up poor in rural Pennsylvania, his father working in a coal mine, his mother taking in laundry. About scholarship to a state college, working 3 jobs to make ends meet. About his first property flip at age 24, making $8,000 profit and feeling like a king. "I was hungry," he said. "Not for food, though we'd known that kind of hunger too. Hungry to prove I was worth something. To show everyone who'd looked down on the poor coal miner's kid that I could be more. So I worked. And worked. And worked. And you became successful. I became wealthy. I'm not sure that's the same as successful." Preston's eyes dimmed. "Success should mean you built something meaningful. I built a company, sure. But I destroyed a family in the process. That's not success. That's just acquisition." Tanya thought about this. "Is that why you didn't remarry? After your wife left?" "I dated occasionally. But I never let anyone close. Told myself I was too busy, that work came first. Truth is, I was afraid. Afraid that if I let someone in, I'd fail them the same way I failed my wife and kids. Easier to stay alone." "That sounds lonely." It was. But I didn't let myself feel it until I ended up here. Preston gestured around the sterile room. "Hard to ignore loneliness when you're dying and there's no one to call." They talked for an hour. Then another. Tanya told him about her neighborhood, the small church where she sang in the choir on Sundays, the community center where she volunteered with kids on Tuesday evenings. Preston told her about boardrooms and negotiations, about the thrill of closing a major deal and the emptiness that always followed. "I should let you rest," Tanya said finally, noticing Preston's fatigue despite his obvious desire to keep talking. "Will you come back tomorrow?" "I work the night shift tomorrow. But I could come by in the morning before I start." Preston's face lit up. "I'd like that." As Tanya stood to leave, Preston called out, "Tanya? Thank you. For treating me like a person instead of a diagnosis. You are a person, Preston. A person who deserves company." Over the next 2 weeks, the visits became routine. Tanya would stop by before her shifts or during her breaks. She brought coffee, sometimes pastries from the bakery near her apartment. They played cards, Preston taught her poker and she taught him spades. They watched old movies on Preston's laptop. He favored classic westerns, she preferred romantic comedies, so they alternated. Rochelle, Tanya's best friend since high school, noticed the change immediately. They met for lunch at their usual spot, a soul food restaurant near the hospital. "You're different," Rochelle said, pointing her fork at Tanya. "You're smiling more. What's going on?" Tanya told her about Preston. About the wrong room, the daily visits, the growing friendship. Rochelle's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "Tanya, baby, you know this man is dying, right?" "Of course I know. And you're getting attached to someone who's going to be gone in a few months?" "Maybe. Probably. But does that mean I should stay away? Just let him die alone because it might hurt me later?" Tanya met her friend's eyes. "Would you do that?" Rochelle, who worked as a social worker with foster kids and was the most compassionate person Tanya knew, sighed. "No, I wouldn't. But I'd also be careful. Make sure you're doing this for the right reasons." "What are the wrong reasons?" "I don't know. Trying to save him? Trying to fix him? Some kind of savior complex." Tanya thought about this honestly. "I don't think I'm trying to save him. I can't. His liver is failing and he's not a transplant candidate. The doctors have been clear. But I can keep him company. I can make sure he doesn't die alone. Isn't that enough?" Rochelle reached across the table and squeezed Tanya's hand. "You have the biggest heart of anyone I know. Just promise me you'll take care of yourself too. Don't lose yourself in taking care of him." "I promise." But even as Tanya said it, she knew she was already in deeper than she'd planned. Preston wasn't just a dying patient anymore. He was becoming her friend. Maybe more than a friend, though she didn't let herself examine that thought too closely. The next morning, Tanya arrived at room 427 to find Preston in a heated phone conversation. His face was flushed and he was sitting up straighter than she'd seen him in days. "I don't care what the board thinks, Howard. It's my company. My decision." Pause. "Then they can vote me out. I'm dying anyway. What are they going to do, fire me?" Another pause. "No, I'm not being irrational. I'm being honest for the first time in 40 years. Just execute the changes I outlined. I'll sign whatever needs signing." He hung up and saw Tanya in the doorway. "Sorry," he said. "Business. Or former business, I suppose. I'm making some changes." "Everything okay?" Preston smiled, and it was the most genuine smile she'd seen from him yet. "Actually, yes. Everything is very okay. I'm liquidating some assets, restructuring my will, and making some donations I should have made years ago. My lawyer thinks I've lost my mind." "Have you?" "No. I found it actually." He gestured for her to sit. "Being here, talking to you, it's made me realize something. I spent 40 years accumulating money and things. And for what? To die alone in a hospital room? That's not legacy. That's just hoarding. What are you going to do instead?" "I'm not sure yet. But I want to do something that matters. Something that helps people, not just generates profit." Preston looked at her seriously. "You've inspired me, Tanya. Your work with those kids at the community center, your grandmother's sacrifices, your determination to finish your education despite all the obstacles. That's what matters. Not quarterly earnings and stock prices." Tanya felt her throat tighten with emotion. "I'm just doing what I can." "You're doing more than you know." They spent the morning talking about possibilities. Preston had resources, connections, knowledge about how systems worked. Tanya had insight into what communities actually needed. Together they sketched out ideas. Scholarships for nursing students. Grants for community healthcare initiatives. Programs to support families dealing with medical debt. "This is good," Preston said, his energy higher than Tanya had seen since they met. "This feels right. Like I'm finally using all that business experience for something worthwhile." But as the conversation continued, Tanya noticed Preston's increasing fatigue. His skin looked more yellow, his breathing slightly more labored. The burst of energy was fading. "You need to rest," she said gently. "I'm fine." "Preston, I'm a nurse. I can see you're not fine. Rest now and we can talk more tomorrow." He reluctantly agreed and Tanya helped him get comfortable. As she was leaving, Preston called out again. "Tanya? That first day when you walked into the wrong room. Do you believe in fate? In things happening for a reason?" Tanya considered this. "I believe in choices. You could have told me to leave that first day. I could have never come back. But we both made different choices. And those choices mattered. I'm glad we made them. Me too. As Tanya walked through the hospital corridors toward her shift, she thought about Preston's question. Fate or choice? Maybe it was both. Maybe fate put her in that wrong room, but choice kept her coming back. Either way, she was glad. Even knowing how this would end, she was glad. 3 weeks into their daily visits, Preston's health took a sharp downturn. Tanya arrived one morning to find his room crowded with doctors, the atmosphere tense and urgent. She stayed in the hallway watching through the glass as they worked, her stomach knotted with worry. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Preston's primary physician, came out an hour later looking tired. Are you family? She asked Tanya. No. Just a friend. Dr. Mitchell's expression softened. You're the one who's been visiting. The nurses told me. He talks about you. How is he? Not good. His liver function has deteriorated significantly in the past 48 hours. We've adjusted his medications to keep him comfortable, but we're looking at weeks now, not months. Maybe less. Dr. Mitchell paused. He asked for you. Said your name several times while we were examining him. Tanya's chest tightened. Can I see him? Give us 15 minutes to get him settled. Then yes. When Tanya finally entered room 427, Preston looked diminished. Smaller somehow. The yellow tint to his skin was more pronounced, and there were new tubes and monitors attached to him. You look terrible, she said, trying for lightness despite the fear clawing at her throat. You should see the other guy. Preston's voice was weak, but he managed a slight smile. Come here. Sit. I need to talk to you about something important. Tanya pulled the chair close to his bed. Preston reached for her hand, his grip fragile but determined. I need to ask you something, and I need you to really hear me. He took a careful breath. What would it take for you to finish your nursing degree? The question surprised her. I don't know. Money mostly. Tom. I'd need to cut back my hours at work, which means less income, which means I can't afford to pay my current bills, much less tuition. How much? Total. Everything. Preston, I don't. Please. Just tell me the number. Tanya thought about her student loans, the medical bills still outstanding from her grandmother's care, the credit card debt. Around $47,000. Maybe a little more with interest. Preston nodded slowly as if confirming something he already knew. My lawyer is coming this afternoon. I'm having him draw up some papers. I want to pay off all your debts. Set up an education fund for you to finish your degree. And establish a living stipend so you can cut back to part-time work while you study. Tanya felt the blood drain from her face. What? No. Preston, I can't accept that. Why not? Because it's too much. Because I didn't become your friend to get money from you. Because people will think. She stopped, unable to articulate the tangle of emotions. People will think what? That you're taking advantage of a dying man. Preston's voice was gentle. Tanya, look at me. I have billions of dollars. Literally billions. And when I die, most of it will go to charities and organizations that will use it efficiently but impersonally. Or my estranged daughter will inherit it and probably give it all away because she doesn't want blood money. None of that matters to me. Then why? Because you matter to me. Because in these 3 weeks, you've given me something I haven't had in decades. Connection. Friendship. Purpose. You've reminded me what it feels like to care about someone other than myself. Preston's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Let me do this. Not because you need saving, but because I need to give. I need to know that my money did something real for someone real before I die. I don't know what to say. Say yes, please. Let me help you the way you've helped me. Tanya felt her own tears starting. I've barely done anything. Just visited. Just talked. You've done everything that mattered. Preston squeezed her hand. I was dying alone and miserable, counting down days in an empty room. You gave me hope. You gave me friendship. You gave me a reason to wake up each morning. That's worth more than money could ever buy. But money is what I have to give back. So please, let me give it. The practical side of Tanya's brain was screaming. $47,000. Freedom from debt. The ability to finish her degree, to become a nurse practitioner, to help more people, to build the life she'd always wanted. The burden that had pressed on her shoulders for years could be gone. But accepting felt wrong. Like she was profiting from his loneliness. Like she was the kind of person who befriended dying billionaires for their money. What will people think? She whispered. The nurses, the doctors, your lawyer. They'll think I manipulated you. I don't care what they think. Do you? Tanya was quiet for a long moment. Then she thought about her grandmother. About Ruth working 2 jobs, sacrificing everything, accepting help from their church community when things got really hard. Ruth had taught her that pride was fine, but false pride was foolish. That accepting help with grace and gratitude wasn't weakness. If I say yes, Tanya said carefully, it's not because I expect anything else from you. I'll keep visiting, keep being your friend regardless of money. You understand that? I do. And I'd be hurt if you stop visiting. This isn't transactional. This is a gift between friends. Tanya took a shaky breath. Then yes, and thank you. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means. Preston smiled, and despite his deteriorating health, it was a smile of pure joy. Actually, I think I do. It means you'll get to help more people. You'll become the kind of nurse practitioner who really sees patients the way you saw me. And that's a legacy I can be proud of. Howard Chin arrived that afternoon. He was a slim man in his 60s with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He looked at Tanya with obvious suspicion. Mr. Caldwell, perhaps we should discuss this privately, he said, his tone carefully neutral. No. Tanya stays. She's the reason for these changes. Preston struggled to sit up more, wincing with pain. Howard pulled out a folder. I've drawn up the documents as you requested. A payment of $47,000 to cover Miss Brooks's debts, an educational trust fund of $100,000 for her continued education, and a monthly stipend of $3,000 for up to 4 years to supplement her income while she completes her degree. Tanya's head spun. $100,000 for education. $3,000 a month. It was more than she'd ever imagined. That's too much, she protested. Preston, the debts are one thing, but... It's nothing, Preston interrupted. Howard, explain to her how little this is in the context of my total assets. Howard's expression didn't change. Mr. Caldwell's liquid assets currently total approximately $1.8 billion. This represents approximately 0.01% of his total wealth. It's the equivalent of someone with $10,000 in the bank spending $1. Preston looked at Tanya. See? It's nothing. And it will change your life. Please don't fight me on this. Tanya looked between Preston and Howard. The lawyer still seemed suspicious, but there was something else in his expression now. A hint of respect, maybe, for Preston's determination. I accept, Tanya said. With gratitude. With so much gratitude I don't even have words. She was crying now, couldn't help it. Years of stress, of working double shifts, of choosing between paying rent and buying groceries, of watching her dreams slip further away each month. All of it releasing in tears of relief and disbelief and overwhelming thankfulness. Preston reached for her hand again. Don't cry. This is a happy thing. I know. These are happy tears. Tanya wiped her eyes. I just can't believe this is real. Believe it? And Tanya? Promise me something. Anything. When you're a nurse practitioner, when you're making good money and living the life you're meant to live, remember this feeling. And help someone else the way I'm helping you. Pay it forward. I promise. I absolutely promise. Howard had them both sign various documents. He was professional but clearly still uncertain about the situation. As he was leaving, he pulled Tanya aside. Miss Brooks, I need to ask you something directly. Are you taking advantage of Mr. Caldwell in his vulnerable state? Tanya met his eyes steadily. No, sir. I'm accepting a gift from someone I care about. Someone who wants to help me. I didn't ask for this. Didn't expect it. But I'm accepting it with gratitude because refusing would hurt him, and he's already hurting enough. Howard studied her for a long moment. He's different since you've been visiting. Lighter somehow. Less bitter. I've known Preston for 20 years and I've never seen him like this. He's a good person who made some mistakes. But he's trying to do better now. See that you take care of him, Howard said quietly. Whatever happens with the money, just take care of him. He deserves that much. I will. After Howard left, Tanya sat with Preston until he fell asleep, exhausted from the emotional intensity of the day. She held his hand and watched him breathe, this strange, generous man who had stumbled into her life by accident and was now changing everything. When she finally left the hospital that evening, the sky was deep purple with approaching night. Tanya stood in the parking lot and called Rochelle. He did what? Rochelle's voice was a mixture of shock and concern. Tanya explained everything. The debts being paid, the education fund, the stipend. Tanya, that's life-changing. That's amazing. But are you sure about this? What if people think? I don't care what people think, Tanya interrupted. Rochelle, I've been drowning for 3 years. Working myself to exhaustion and barely staying afloat. And now I can breathe. I can finish school. I can build the life I've always wanted. How can I say no to that? You can't, Rochelle admitted. And honestly, if this man wants to help you, if he has the money and it makes him happy, then maybe this is what's supposed to happen. Just be careful with your heart, okay? He's still dying. I know. But even as she said it, Tanya realized her heart was already involved in ways she hadn't fully acknowledged. This wasn't just friendship anymore. She cared about Preston deeply, personally, in ways that went beyond gratitude or compassion. She was falling for him. A dying billionaire 35 years older than her. It was absurd, impossible, and completely, undeniably real. The paperwork was processed within a week. Howard Chin was efficient if nothing else. Tanya watched in disbelief as her student loan balance went to zero. As the medical bills from her grandmother's care were marked paid in full. As her credit card debt disappeared. For the first time in 3 years, she could breathe without the weight of debt pressing on her chest. She immediately cut her hours at the hospital from full-time to part-time, going from 40-plus hours a week to 24. The reduction in income didn't matter anymore because of Preston's stipend. She enrolled in online classes toward her Bachelor of Science in Nursing, starting with 2 courses to ease back into student life. And she spent every free moment in room 427. Preston's health continued its slow decline, but his spirits remained surprisingly high. The visits had become the structure of both their days. Tanya would arrive mid-morning with coffee and pastries. They'd talk, play cards, watch movies, or sometimes just sit in comfortable silence while Tanya studied and Preston dozed. "Read it out loud," Preston said one afternoon while Tanya was studying pharmacology. "I want to hear what you're learning." So Tanya read about drug interactions and dosage calculations, and Preston listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he was really paying attention. "You're going to be an amazing nurse practitioner," he said during one of these sessions. "You have the knowledge, the compassion, and the determination. That's a powerful combination." Tanya smiled. "I'm learning from the best patients. Just the one patient, I hope. I'd be jealous if you were spreading these visits around." It was said lightly, but there was something underneath. A hint of possessiveness that Tanya noticed and chose not to examine too closely. Rochelle finally agreed to meet Preston 3 weeks after the financial arrangement was finalized. She'd been skeptical, protective of Tanya, suspicious of Preston's motives. But Tanya had worn her down with persistent invitations. "Fine," Rochelle had said. "But if he's some creepy old man taking advantage of you, I'm going to have words." "He's not. I promise." Rochelle arrived at the hospital on a Saturday afternoon wearing jeans and a bright purple sweater, her natural hair styled in beautiful twists. She eyed Preston warily as Tanya made introductions. "So you're the mysterious billionaire," Rochelle said, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. Preston, propped up in bed and looking particularly frail that day, smiled. "And you're the protective best friend. Tanya's told me a lot about you. Your work with foster children sounds challenging." "It is. But someone has to advocate for kids who can't advocate for themselves." Rochelle sat in the second visitor's chair that Tanya had dragged in from the hallway. "Tanya tells me you've been very generous." "I've been fortunate. It feels good to share that fortune with someone who'll use it to help others." "Aha." Rochelle wasn't giving an inch. "And what do you expect in return?" "Rochelle," Tanya protested, but Preston held up a hand. "It's a fair question. I expect nothing except Tanya's continued friendship, which I'd have regardless of money. I was alone and miserable when she accidentally walked into my room. She gave me company, conversation, and purpose. That's invaluable. This is just me trying to give something back." Rochelle studied him for a long moment. Then she seemed to make a decision. "Okay, I believe you. But hurt her and dying or not, I will make your last days very uncomfortable." Preston actually laughed. "I would expect nothing less from a good friend. Tanya is lucky to have you." The ice broken, Rochelle relaxed. They spent the afternoon talking, and Tanya watched as her best friend's suspicion melted into genuine warmth. Preston asked about Rochelle's work, and she told them stories about the kids she helped. Heartbreaking stories of neglect and abuse, but also stories of resilience and hope. "There's this one girl, Keisha," Rochelle said. "Wait," she corrected herself. "I mean Jasmine. No, I mean..." She paused, frustrated. "Let me start over. There's this 11-year-old girl, let's call her Nicole. She's been in 6 foster homes in 3 years. Each time something goes wrong. Not her fault, usually just bad situations. But she's starting to believe she's the problem." "That's heartbreaking," Preston said quietly. "It is. But I'm working on finding her a permanent placement with a family that can handle her needs. She's smart, funny, artistic. She just needs stability and someone who won't give up on her." Preston was quiet for a moment, then said, "What if there was funding for specialized support? Training for foster families, therapy for kids, resources to help matches succeed." Rochelle's eyes widened. That would be incredible. But programs like that need significant investment. How much? And they were off, discussing possibilities. Rochelle knew the gaps in the foster care system intimately. Preston knew how to structure funding and create sustainable programs. Tanya watched them brainstorm, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Her two worlds, colliding in the best possible way. By the time Rochelle left that evening, she pulled Tanya into a tight hug in the hallway. "Okay, I take it back. He's one of the good ones. Dying billionaire or not, he genuinely cares about you. I told you. And you care about him. Like really care about him." Rochelle gave her a knowing look. "Tanya, you're falling in love with him." Tanya wanted to deny it. But she couldn't. "Is that crazy? He's dying. He's 35 years older than me. This can't go anywhere. Love doesn't ask permission. It just happens." Rochelle squeezed her hand. "Just be careful with your heart. And his. You're both in a vulnerable place." That night, Tanya couldn't sleep. She lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Preston. About the way he listened when she talked. The way he made her feel seen and valued. The way his whole face lit up when she entered his room each day. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to keep him company, ease his loneliness, maybe help him find some peace before the end. She wasn't supposed to fall in love. But she had. Completely. Irrevocably. The next morning, Howard Chin returned to Preston's room while Tanya was visiting. He had more papers for Preston to sign, amendments to his will, documentation for the charitable foundation Preston was establishing. "Hello, Miss Brooks," Howard said, his manner much warmer than their first meeting. "I brought something for you too." He handed Tanya a folder. Inside was information about the education trust, the stipend payments, and something she hadn't expected. A letter of recommendation from Preston for her nursing school applications. Tanya read it, tears blurring her vision. Preston had written about her compassion, her dedication, her natural ability to connect with patients and see them as whole people. It was the most beautiful recommendation she'd ever received. "When did you write this?" she asked Preston. "Last week. Howard helped me draft it. I wanted you to have it for your applications. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to. You deserve every opportunity, Tanya. And I want to help open doors for you." Howard cleared his throat. "If I may, Mr. Caldwell, there's one other matter we should discuss. Your daughter Lauren has been trying to reach you." Preston's expression closed off. "I'm sure she has. Now that I'm dying and there's money involved." "Actually," Howard said carefully, "she said she doesn't want money. She wants to talk. After 8 years of silence, now she wants to talk." "People change, Preston," Tanya said gently. "Maybe she's ready to try." Preston looked at her, his blue eyes conflicted. What if she's just here out of obligation? Or guilt? What if she's here because she genuinely wants to reconnect? Would that be so bad? Howard pulled out his phone. "She's downstairs in the cafeteria. She's been coming every day for a week, waiting to see if you'd agree to meet. I can call her up or I can send her away. Your choice." Preston looked terrified. More frightened than Tanya had seen him even when discussing his impending death. "I don't know what to say to her." "Start with hello," Tanya suggested. "The rest will follow." Preston took a shaky breath. "Okay. Tell her she can come up." Howard made the call. Then he and Tanya stepped out to give Preston privacy, though Tanya positioned herself where she could see through the glass if needed. Lauren Caldwell arrived 10 minutes later. She was in her mid-30s with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a simple blue blouse. She looked nervous, her hands fidgeting with her purse strap as she paused outside room 427. "That's his daughter?" Tanya asked Howard. "Yes. She's a teacher. Elementary school, I believe. Lives modestly despite the trust fund her father set up. She's donated most of it to educational charities over the years." Tanya watched as Lauren entered the room. Through the glass, she saw Preston's face transform. First shock, then wariness, then something that looked like hope. They talked for over an hour. Tanya couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw Lauren crying, saw Preston reach for her hand, saw them both breaking and mending simultaneously. When Lauren finally emerged, her eyes were red but there was a lightness to her expression. "Thank you," she said to Tanya. "Howard told me you've been visiting my father. Taking care of him." "We're friends," Tanya said simply. "He looks better than I expected. Sick, obviously, but more alive somehow." I think that's because of you. Lauren smiled. I'd like to visit again tomorrow if that's okay. You should ask him, not me. I did. He said yes. He said as long as it doesn't interfere with your visits. Lauren's smile widened. I think you're important to him. After Lauren left, Tanya returned to Preston's room. He looked exhausted but peaceful. How did it go? Better than I deserved. She's angry, hurt, but she's willing to try. We have a lot to work through, but at least we're talking. Preston looked at Tanya with wonder. This is because of you. You encouraged me to reach out. This is because you both were brave enough to try. Preston pulled Tanya closer, holding her hand tightly. I'm scared. Of what? Of how much you've come to mean to me. Of how much I'll miss when I'm gone. Of leaving you. His voice cracked. I know this is selfish. I know you've given me so much already. But I want more time. I want to see you graduate, see you become a nurse practitioner, see you build the life you deserve. Tanya felt her heart breaking and mending at the same time. I want that too. I'm falling in love with you, Preston whispered. I know I shouldn't. I know it's not fair to you. But I am. And Tanya, who had been holding back these feelings for weeks, finally let them free. I'm falling in love with you too. They sat in silence, holding hands, the weight of that admission settling over them like snow. Gentle. Inevitable. Beautiful and melancholy all at once. This is complicated, Preston said finally. Yes. But I can't regret it. Even knowing how this ends, I can't regret falling in love with you. Neither can I. The confession of their feelings changed things, though neither could quite articulate how. There was a tenderness between them now, a deeper intimacy that went beyond friendship. They were careful with each other, gentle, aware of the preciousness and fragility of what they had. Preston's health stabilized somewhat over the next few weeks. Not improvement exactly, but a plateau. The doctors were cautiously optimistic that he might have more time than initially predicted. Maybe a few extra months, Dr. Mitchell told them during one of her rounds. Sometimes patients surprise us. The will to live can be powerful. Preston squeezed Tanya's hand. I have a lot to live for now. With his stabilized health, Preston threw himself into teaching Tanya about business and finance. Not because he expected her to become an entrepreneur, but because he wanted her to understand how money worked, how to build wealth, how to make her education fund grow. Financial literacy is power, he explained one afternoon, his laptop balanced on the rolling table across his bed. Especially for people from working-class backgrounds. The system is designed to keep you in debt, keep you struggling. But if you understand how it works, you can game the system instead of being gamed by it. Tanya brought her own laptop, and they sat side by side as much as his hospital bed allowed, exploring investment platforms and real estate opportunities. Look at this property, Preston said, showing her a small apartment building in her neighborhood. It's undervalued because it needs cosmetic work, but the structure is sound. Owner is motivated to sell quickly. See the price. Tanya looked. $240,000 for a 4-unit building. That seems low. It is. Current market rent for each unit would be about $1,200 per month. That's $4,800 monthly income. Subtract property tax, insurance, maintenance, you're still looking at maybe $3,000 profit per month once the mortgage is paid off. Over 30 years, that's over $1 million in wealth building. But I don't have $240,000. You put down 20%. That's $48,000. Your education fund could cover that and still leave plenty for school. You rent out 3 units, live in the 4th yourself. The rent from the other units covers your mortgage. You're building equity while living essentially rent-free. Tanya's mind spun. This is real? People actually do this. All the time. This is how wealth gets built. Not through salaries, though those are important. Through assets. Through making your money work for you. Preston clicked through more listings. I'm not saying you should do this now. You need to focus on school first. But understanding these principles means when you are ready, you'll know how to move. They spend hours like this. Preston explaining tax advantages, compound interest, diversification. Tanya taking notes, asking questions, her mind expanding to possibilities she'd never considered. Why didn't anyone teach me this before? She asked one day, frustrated by her own previous ignorance. Because the system doesn't want you to know. An educated, financially literate working class is dangerous to the status quo. They want you in debt, working for wages, too tired to build wealth. Preston's voice was bitter. I benefited from that system for 40 years. I'm trying to make up for it now. Rochelle joined some of these sessions, bringing her own questions about financial planning. Preston was patient, thorough, excited to share knowledge. He created spreadsheets for both women, showing them 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year plans for wealth building. "This is incredible," Rochelle said, staring at the projections. "If I follow this plan, I could retire at 55 with over $1 million in assets." "You could retire earlier if you're aggressive about it," Preston said. "But yes, this is possible. Not easy, but possible." Lauren started visiting regularly, usually in the early evenings. She and Preston were carefully rebuilding their relationship, both trying to navigate years of hurt and distance. Tanya gave them space during these visits, using the time to study or catch up with Rochelle. "How's it going with them?" Rochelle asked during one of these breaks as they sat in the hospital cafeteria. "Better. There's still tension, still things they need to work through. But they're talking. That's progress." "And how are you doing with all of this?" Rochelle gestured vaguely. "The money, the relationship, the dying billionaire boyfriend situation?" Tanya laughed despite herself. "When you put it like that, it sounds absurd." "It is absurd. But it's also real. And I can see you're happy. Happier than you've been in years." "I am. But I'm also scared. Every day I wake up wondering if this is the day his health crashes. If this is the day I lose him." "Have you two talked about the future? About what happens when he dies?" Tanya finished. "Not really. We focus on now. On today. Talking about after feels like giving up." Rochelle reached across the table and took her hand. "Tanya, you need to prepare yourself. I know you love him. I know this is real. But he is dying. And when that happens, you're going to need support." "I know. I just don't want to think about it yet." "Okay. But when you're ready to think about it, I'm here." Back in Preston's room, Tanya found him and Lauren looking at old photo albums on Lauren's phone. Pictures of a much younger Preston with a baby Lauren, with a boy who must have been her brother. "That's Michael," Lauren said softly, showing Tanya a picture of a teenage boy with Preston's blue eyes. "My brother. He died 12 years ago." "I'm so sorry," Tanya said. "Dad and I are talking about him now. Finally. About how hard it was, how we both handled it badly." Lauren looked at her father. "We lost a lot of time because we couldn't communicate our grief." Preston's eyes were wet. "I should have been there for you. Instead I ran. Buried myself in work because I didn't know how to handle the pain." "We both ran," Lauren said. "But we're here now." Watching them, Tanya felt hopeful. Redemption was possible. Healing was possible. Even at the end of life, there was time to make things right. That night, after Lauren left and the hospital settled into its quiet nighttime rhythm, Preston asked Tanya to stay later than usual. "I want to tell you something," he said. "About my son. About Michael." Tanya settled into her chair, holding his hand. "He was 17 when he died. Car accident. Some drunk driver ran a red light. Michael died instantly." Preston's voice was steady, but his grip on Tanya's hand was tight. "I was in Singapore, closing a deal worth $50 million. I got the call from my wife and I remember thinking, I need to get home. But I also thought, if I leave now, this deal falls through." Tanya waited, letting him tell the story at his own pace. "I stayed. I finished the negotiations. Caught a flight home 36 hours later. Missed my own son's funeral by 12 hours. Preston looked at her, his eyes haunted. "That's who I was. A man who valued a business deal over his own child's funeral." "You were in shock. People don't think clearly when they're grieving." "That's a kind interpretation. The truth is simpler and uglier. I prioritized wrong. My whole life I prioritized wrong. Work over family. Money over relationships. Success over love." He brought her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "Meeting you, loving you has shown me how wrong I was. You're worth more than all the money I ever made. These hours with you matter more than 40 years of business success." "Preston. Let me finish. I need you to know this. I need you to understand that you didn't just give me company in my final months. You gave me clarity. You helped me see what actually matters. And even if I only get a few more weeks with you, those weeks will be the most valuable of my entire life." Tanya was crying now, couldn't help it. "I love you. I love you so much, and I hate that we didn't have more time. We have now. That's enough." But even as he said it, they both knew it wasn't quite true. Love always wants more time. But they were learning to be grateful for what they had instead of bitter about what they lacked. The business lessons continued. Preston was determined to leave Tanya with knowledge and skills that would serve her long after he was gone. He taught her about negotiation, about reading contracts, about protecting herself in business dealings. Always read the fine print, he said. Always ask questions. Never sign anything you don't fully understand. You sound like you're preparing me for something, Tanya observed. I'm preparing you for life. You're smart, capable, and kind. But kind people sometimes get taken advantage of. I want you to be strong too. To protect yourself while still being generous. He also introduced her to his network. Via video calls from his hospital bed, Preston connected Tanya with successful women in healthcare, business, and nonprofit work. He made introductions, opened doors, built bridges. This is your network now, he told her after one such call. These people know you're important to me. They'll help you if you need it. Why are you doing all this? Preston smiled. Because I love you. And because I want to know that when I'm gone, you'll have every possible advantage to build the life you deserve. It was a gift. All of it. The money, the knowledge, the connections. But more than that, it was love made tangible. Preston couldn't give her more time, but he could give her everything else. 8 weeks after their first meeting, Preston had a routine blood draw and CT scan. The tests had become part of his weekly rhythm, monitoring the progression of his disease. Tanya sat with him during the blood draw, holding his other hand while the nurse worked. I hate needles, Preston admitted with a sheepish smile. You're dying of liver failure and you're afraid of needles? We all have our things. Dr. Mitchell came by that evening to discuss the results. Tanya started to leave to give them privacy, but Preston asked her to stay. Whatever she has to say, I want you to hear it, he said. Dr. Mitchell looked between them, seeming to understand the depth of their relationship. The results are unusual. Your liver function hasn't declined. In fact, some markers have actually improved slightly. Preston blinked. Improved? Marginally, but yes. Your bilirubin is down, your albumin is up. The improvement is small, but it's going in the right direction. Dr. Mitchell pulled up charts on her tablet, showing them the trends. I don't want to give you false hope. End-stage liver disease doesn't reverse. But sometimes it can stabilize for longer periods than expected. How much longer? Tanya asked. I don't know. Could be weeks, could be months. Every patient is different. Dr. Mitchell looked at Preston seriously. What have you been doing differently? Preston looked at Tanya. I've had a reason to live. Dr. Mitchell smiled. Well, keep doing whatever you're doing. The mind-body connection in medicine is real. Patients who have strong emotional support and reasons to keep fighting often do better than predicted. After she left, Preston and Tanya sat in stunned silence. Did she just say I might have more time? Preston whispered. She said it's possible. Preston pulled Tanya into a careful hug, mindful of his 4 lines. More time with you. That's all I want. Just more time. The news spread through their small circle. Lauren cried happy tears when Preston told her. Rochelle called it a miracle. Howard Chin, ever practical, cautioned them not to get too hopeful but admitted it was encouraging. But the most dramatic change was in Preston himself. The news seemed to give him renewed energy. He started asking about physical therapy, about building strength. The hospital arranged for a therapist to work with him, and Preston attacked the exercises with determination. If I'm getting more time, I want to use it, he told Tanya as he struggled through leg lifts. I want to be able to walk with you. To take you to dinner somewhere that's not a hospital cafeteria. I like the hospital cafeteria, Tanya protested. You're a terrible liar. Within 2 weeks, Preston was able to walk short distances with a walker. Tanya accompanied him on slow laps around the hospital floor, and they talked about the future with a tentativeness they hadn't allowed before. What would you want to do? Tanya asked during one of these walks. If you had more time? Preston thought about this. I'd want to see you graduate. I'd want to meet the kids you mentor at the community center. I'd want to travel with you, show you places I've been. Paris in the spring. The Italian coast. The northern lights in Iceland. He paused, gripping the walker. Mostly I just want time. Normal time. Watching movies together. Cooking meals. The boring everyday things I never appreciated before. That sounds perfect. What about you? What would you want? Tanya considered. I'd want to introduce you to my church. Have you meet the choir. Show you my neighborhood, the places that matter to me. I'd want to wake up next to you without wondering if you'll be there tomorrow. They continued walking, 2 people learning to hope again. The next significant change came when Tanya brought her church choir to visit. It was a Sunday afternoon, and she'd coordinated with the hospital to get permission for the group visit. 15 people from New Hope Baptist Church crowded into and around room 427, bringing energy and life. They sang hymns and gospel songs, filling the sterile space with warmth and joy. Preston listened with wonder, tears streaming down his face as the voices rose in harmony. When they finished, Mother Patricia, the choir director, a stout black woman in her 60s with a voice like honey, came to Preston's bedside. "Tanya tells us you've been a blessing to her," she said. "We wanted to thank you and let you know we're praying for you." "I'm not much of a church person," Preston admitted. "God loves you anyway," Mother Patricia said with a smile. "And so do we because you love our Tanya." After the choir left, Preston was quiet for a long time. "What are you thinking?" Tanya asked. "That I've spent 62 years avoiding community, avoiding connection. And in 2 months with you, I've experienced more genuine human warmth than in my entire life before." He looked at her. "Your people are good people." "They are. And now they're your people too." Preston's improvement continued. 6 weeks after the first signs of stabilization, his latest scans showed no progression of the disease. He wasn't getting better, not really, but he wasn't getting worse either. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Mitchell said during a consultation. "I've never seen anything quite like this. Your liver is severely damaged, but it's somehow maintaining function at a stable level." "How long?" Preston asked the question they all wanted answered. "I don't know. Months possibly. Maybe longer. We'll continue monitoring closely, but if this stability holds, you could have significant quality time ahead of you." That night, Preston made a decision. He called Howard Chin and asked him to explore the possibility of a medical discharge. "I don't want to die in a hospital," he told Tanya. "If I have time, real time, I want to spend it living. Not lying in this bed watching life through a window." "Where would you go?" "I don't know. I sold my penthouse years ago. I have properties, but they're all investment rentals, not homes." He paused. "Where do you live? Tell me about your apartment." Tanya described her studio. The small but tidy space. The neighborhood where she'd grown up. The sounds of kids playing basketball in the park across the street. The corner store run by Mr. Kim. The community center where she volunteered. "I want to see it," Preston said. "I want to understand the life you've built." 3 days later, with Howard's help and medical supervision, Preston was granted a day pass. It was the first time he'd left the hospital in 3 months. Tanya drove him in her old Honda Civic to her neighborhood. Preston looked around with wonder. The tree-lined streets. The row houses with small front gardens. Kids riding bikes. Old men playing chess on folding tables. Music drifting from open windows. "This is beautiful," he said. "It's not fancy. Not like what you're used to. It's real. It's community. It's everything I never had." They parked in front of Tanya's building, a modest 3-story walk-up. Preston managed the stairs slowly with Tanya's support. Her studio was on the 2nd floor. He looked around the small space with its efficiency kitchen, the bed that folded into the wall, the shelf of nursing textbooks, the photos of her grandmother. "This is perfect. This is you." They sat on her small couch, drinking sweet tea Tanya made, and for the first time since meeting, they weren't in a hospital. They were just 2 people in love, sitting together, being present. "I could see building a life here," Preston said softly. "Not in this apartment specifically, but in this neighborhood. Near you. Part of your community. You'd leave your fancy properties to live here?" "In a heartbeat. Tanya, I've had every material thing money can buy. And none of it made me happy. This, being with you, being part of something real, this is what I've been missing my whole life." That evening, as Tanya drove Preston back to the hospital, he wasn't cleared for overnight discharge yet, they talked seriously about the future for the first time. "If this stability holds," Preston said, "if I really do have months, maybe longer, I want to make plans. Real plans." "What kind of plans?" "I want to move here. To your neighborhood. Get an apartment, something accessible if my health declines again. I want to meet your friends properly, attend your church if they'd have me, be part of your life in a real way." Tanya's heart raced. "Preston, that's a big step." "I know. And if it's too much, if you need space, I understand. But I'm tired of half measures. I love you. I want whatever time I have left to be spent fully loving you." "I want that too," Tanya whispered. "I want all of that." They made plans. Preston would work with Howard to find an accessible apartment in Tanya's neighborhood. He'd continue outpatient treatment and monitoring. He'd slowly transition from patient to person, from dying man to man living fully in borrowed time. "This is hope," Preston said as they pulled into the hospital parking lot. "Real hope. I didn't think I'd feel this again." "Neither did I." They sat in the car for a moment, holding hands in the darkness, 2 people who'd found each other by accident and were now choosing each other with intention. The journey wasn't over. Preston's health was still fragile. The future was still uncertain. But for the first time since Tanya had walked into that wrong room, the future felt like something worth planning for. The confession they'd made weeks ago hung between them, acknowledged but not fully explored. They loved each other. They'd said the words. But neither had pushed beyond friendship boundaries, held back by circumstance and propriety and fear. That changed on a Tuesday evening in late autumn. Tanya had stayed late after her shift, and most of the hospital had settled into its nighttime quiet. Preston was sitting up in bed, looking stronger than he had in months, reading a business journal on his tablet. "You should go home," he said when he noticed the time. "Get some rest." "I'm not tired." Tanya moved her chair closer to his bed. "I'm happy here." Preston set down his tablet and looked at her fully. Really looked at her, with an intensity that made Tanya's breath catch. "Tanya," he said softly, "I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen without interrupting." She nodded. "I know this situation is absurd. I'm a dying man 35 years older than you. By any reasonable measure, what I feel for you is inappropriate, impossible, and doomed." He paused. "But I don't care. I love you. Not as a grateful patient. Not as someone passing time. I love you as a man loves a woman. Completely. Desperately. With every part of me that's still capable of loving." Tanya felt tears starting but didn't interrupt. "I lie here at night," Preston continued, "and I think about what I'd do differently if I had my life to live over. And the answer is simple. I'd find you sooner. I'd prioritize love over money. I'd choose connection over achievement. I'd build a life instead of a fortune. Preston, I know I can't give you forever. I might not even have another year. But I can give you now. I can give you honesty and devotion in every moment I have left. And I know it's selfish to ask, but I'm asking anyway." He reached for her hand. "Would you be with me? Really be with me? Not as my nurse or my friend, but as my partner? My love." Tanya had been holding herself back for weeks, protecting her heart, maintaining boundaries. But sitting here with Preston looking at her with such raw vulnerability, all those defenses crumbled. "I already am," she said. "I've been yours since the day I walked into this room. I just didn't know how to say it." Preston's face transformed. Joy and relief and love all mixed together. "Come here." Tanya stood and carefully sat on the edge of his bed. Preston reached up and touched her face, his fingers gentle against her cheek. "I'm going to kiss you now," he said. "If that's okay." "That's more than okay." Their first kiss was soft, tentative. A question and an answer. Then deeper, more certain. Tanya felt years of loneliness melting away, both hers and his. This was right. However unconventional, however brief their time might be, this was right. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying. "I love you," Preston whispered. "I love you so much." "I love you too." They stayed like that for a long time, Tanya carefully nestled against Preston's shoulder, both of them marveling at this unexpected gift. Love in a hospital room. Love in borrowed time. Love that defied logic but answered a deeper truth. "What do we do now?" Tanya asked eventually. "We love each other. We be together. We stop wasting time on fear and just live." Preston kissed the top of her head. "And maybe, if you're willing, we make this official." Tanya sat up to look at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean..." Preston paused, seeming to gather courage. "Tanya Brooks, I know this is fast. I know we've only known each other 3 months. But I also know that you're the best thing that ever happened to me. And I don't want to waste whatever time I have left. So I'm asking, even though it's crazy, even though everyone will think we're rushing, will you marry me?" Tanya's mind spun. Marriage. To Preston. It was absurd. They'd known each other for 3 months. He was dying. The age difference would raise eyebrows. People would think she was after his money. But none of that mattered compared to what she felt when she looked at him. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Preston's smile could have lit up the entire hospital. "Yes. Yes. Absolutely yes." He pulled her into another kiss, longer this time, full of promise and commitment and love. When they finally pulled apart, Preston fumbled for his phone. "I need to call Howard. And a jeweler. You need a ring. A proper ring." "I don't need a fancy ring, Preston. But I want to give you one. I want everyone to know you're taken. That you chose me." Tanya laughed through her tears. "The ring doesn't matter. You matter." But Preston was already dialing Howard, explaining what had happened, asking about marriage licenses and legal requirements. Howard's voice crackled through the speaker, surprised but supportive. "Congratulations, Preston." "Tanya. I'll handle the paperwork." How soon do you want to do this? Preston looked at Tanya. As soon as possible? She nodded. As soon as possible. Give me a week, Howard said. I'll arrange everything. After hanging up, Preston pulled Tanya close again. I can't believe you said yes. I can't believe you asked. But I'm glad you did. Are you scared? Of what people will say? Tanya thought about this honestly. A little. But more than that, I'm happy. We found each other against all odds. We love each other. Why should we care what anyone else thinks? Rochelle will have thoughts. Rochelle will have many thoughts. But she'll support us. She loves me and she's seen how good you are for me. They talked through the night about their plans. A simple wedding, probably in the hospital chapel since Preston couldn't travel far yet. Just close friends and family. Nothing elaborate, just meaningful. I want your choir to sing, Preston said. If they're willing. They'll be thrilled. And I want Lauren to be there. To see that her father finally did something right. The next morning, Tanya called Rochelle and asked her to come to the hospital. When her best friend arrived, Tanya met her in the cafeteria and told her everything. Rochelle's eyes went wide. Married? Tanya, that's huge. I know. You've known him for 3 months. I know. He's still sick. He could still die. I know all of that. But Rochelle, I love him. And he loves me. And we don't know how much time we have. Why waste it being cautious? Rochelle studied her friend's face. Then she smiled. You're sure about this? Completely sure? More sure than I've been about anything. Then I'm happy for you. And I'll help you plan this wedding. Rochelle pulled Tanya into a hug. You deserve love, Tanya. Even if it's complicated. Even if it's unconventional. You deserve to be happy. The next challenge was telling Lauren. Preston was nervous about it, worried his daughter would think he was being impulsive or foolish. She might not understand, he told Tanya. Then we'll help her understand. Together. Lauren came by that evening for her regular visit. Preston asked her to sit down and Tanya joined them. Lauren, there's something I need to tell you, Preston started. Tanya and I are getting married. Lauren's eyes widened. She looked between them, processing. Married? Dad, you've only known each other for a few months. I know how it looks. But when you're facing the end of your life, things become very clear very quickly. I love Tanya. She loves me. We want to spend whatever time I have left as husband and wife. Lauren was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Tanya. Do you love him? Really love him? This isn't about money or obligation. I love him, Tanya said firmly. More than I thought possible. And yes, it's fast. Yes, he's sick. But that doesn't make it less real. Lauren nodded slowly. Then to their surprise she smiled. Okay. Then I'm happy for you both. Dad, you've been more alive these past months than I've seen you in years. If Tanya did that, if she brought you back to life, then she's good for you. Preston let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Thank you. That means more than you know. Can I be involved in the planning? Lauren asked. I never got to help plan a wedding for you. I'd like to be part of this. We'd love that, Tanya said. The next week was a whirlwind of preparation. Howard handled the legal paperwork. Lauren coordinated with the hospital chapel. Rochelle helped Tanya find a simple red dress. No wedding white, they both agreed given the circumstances. The church choir enthusiastically agreed to sing. Preston, with Howard's help, arranged for a simple silver band to be delivered to the hospital. No diamonds, no ostentation. Just a circle of metal representing eternal love. It's perfect, Tanya said when he showed it to her. You're perfect. The day before the wedding, Preston's health took a slight dip. Nothing catastrophic, but his numbers weren't as good as they'd been. Dr. Mitchell adjusted his medications and assured them he'd be fine for the ceremony. Just take it easy, she advised. Short ceremony, lots of rest after. That night, Tanya and Preston lay together on his hospital bed, against regulations, but the night nurse looked the other way, talking about their future. What if I don't have much time left? Preston asked quietly. What if marrying me means you end up a widow in a few months? Then I'll be a widow who had the privilege of being your wife. Who loved you and was loved by you. That's worth whatever grief comes after. You're braver than I am. No. Just more certain about what matters. Preston held her close, breathing in her scent, feeling her warmth. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for choosing this life with me. Thank you for asking. They fell asleep like that, two people on the eve of their wedding, grateful for the present and hopeful for whatever future they might have. The morning of the wedding, Tanya woke up in her apartment feeling surreal. Today she was marrying Preston Caldwell. 3 months ago she'd walked into the wrong hospital room. Now she was about to become his wife. Rochelle arrived early, bringing coffee and breakfast. "How are you feeling?" she asked, studying Tanya's face. "Happy. Nervous. Excited. Terrified." Tanya laughed. "All of it at once. That's normal bride stuff." "Well, normal except for the hospital chapel and dying groom parts." "Rochelle. Sorry? Too soon for dark humor?" Rochelle hugged her. "I'm kidding. This is beautiful, Tanya. Unconventional but beautiful. Preston is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him." They spent the morning getting ready. Tanya's red dress was simple but elegant, hitting just below her knees. Rochelle did her makeup, keeping it natural but polished. Tanya wore her hair in natural curls, pulled back with a small clip. "You look beautiful," Rochelle said, stepping back to admire her work. "He's going to cry when he sees you." At the hospital, Lauren was helping Preston get ready. He'd ordered a new blue suit, properly fitted. Though he'd lost weight, his body was still presentable. Howard Chin stood as best man, making sure everything was in order. "Are you nervous?" Lauren asked her father. "Terrified," Preston admitted. "What if she changes her mind? What if she realizes this is crazy?" "She won't. I've seen the way she looks at you." Lauren adjusted his tie. "Dad, you're getting a second chance at happiness. Don't overthink it. Just be present." The hospital chapel was small but lovely. Someone had arranged flowers, yellow sunflowers like the ones Tanya had brought that first day. The church choir assembled, dressed in their Sunday best. Hospital staff who'd watched their love story unfold filled the pews. Preston stood at the front with Howard, his hands shaking slightly. Dr. Mitchell had approved him for a few hours outside his room, but they had a wheelchair standing by just in case. The choir began to sing. Not a traditional wedding song, but a gospel hymn about love and grace. The voices rose, filling the small space with warmth. Then Tanya appeared at the back of the chapel, and Preston's breath caught. She walked down the short aisle alone. Her grandmother was gone, and she had no other family to walk her, but she didn't look lonely. She looked radiant, confident, happy. When she reached Preston, he took her hands and they were both crying. The ceremony was officiated by Pastor James from New Hope Baptist, a kind older man who'd agreed to marry them despite the unconventional circumstances. "Dearly beloved," he began, his voice warm and steady, "we are gathered here to witness the union of Preston and Tanya. This is a love story that defies convention. These two people found each other in the most unlikely of places, at the most unexpected of times. But that's how love works. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't follow rules. It simply is." He spoke about second chances, about the power of connection, about choosing love even when the future is uncertain. Then it was time for vows. Preston went first, his voice shaking but strong. "Tanya, 3 months ago I was a dying man with nothing to live for. I'd spent my life accumulating wealth and achievements, but I'd never really lived. Then you walked into my room by mistake and everything changed. You saw me. Not my money, not my reputation, just me. And you chose to stay. You gave me friendship, then love, then hope. You've taught me that it's never too late to become the person you should have been. I can't promise you forever. But I can promise you every moment I have left. I promise to love you fully, to support your dreams, to be the partner you deserve. From this day forward, you're my home." Tanya was crying openly now. She took a breath and spoke her vows. "Preston, before I met you, I was surviving but not truly living. Working endless hours, drowning in debt, watching my dreams slip further away. You changed everything. Not just with your generosity, though that was life-changing, but with your honesty, your vulnerability, your willingness to let me see all of you. You've shown me that love can be found in the most unexpected places, that it's never too late for second chances, that choosing each other is the bravest thing we can do. I promise to love you in sickness and in health. I promise to be here through whatever comes. I promise to hold your hand and walk beside you for as long as we have. You're my miracle, Preston, and I choose you, today and always." There wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. Pastor James led them through the traditional vows, the exchange of rings. When he pronounced them husband and wife, Preston cupped Tanya's face in his hands and kissed her gently, reverently, like she was the most precious thing in the world. The choir erupted into joyful song. People clapped. Lauren was crying and smiling at the same time. Rochelle was taking pictures on her phone, documenting every moment. The reception was held in a private room the hospital had donated for the occasion. Simple refreshments, a small cake that Lauren had ordered. Nothing fancy but full of love. Preston tired quickly and had to sit for most of it, but he was smiling, truly smiling, in a way that transformed his face. "I'm married," he kept saying to Howard. "I'm actually married." "You are. And to a wonderful woman." Lauren approached Tanya during a quiet moment. "Thank you," she said simply, "for making my father happy. For giving him this. He's made me happy too. We're giving each other this." "I know. But still. Thank you." Lauren hugged her. "Welcome to the family. What's left of it anyway?" Toward the end of the reception, Mother Patricia from the choir pulled Tanya aside. "Child, you've done a good thing here. Not just for yourself but for him. That man was lost and you helped him find his way home. He helped me too. More than he knows. That's how the best marriages work. You save each other." As the reception wound down, Preston was clearly exhausted. Tanya could see the pain he was trying to hide, the effort it was taking to stay present. "Let's get you back to your room," she said gently. "Our room," Preston corrected. "The hospital is giving us a double room tonight. Our wedding night. Not exactly romantic, but it's something." The hospital had indeed arranged a larger room with 2 beds pushed together. Someone had brought in more flowers, dimmed the lights, made it as nice as possible within the constraints of a medical facility. Preston settled into bed with Tanya beside him, both of them still in their wedding clothes. "We did it," he said, wonder in his voice. "We're married. We are. I never thought I'd have this. A wedding day. A wife who actually loves me. A future worth living for." Tanya kissed him softly. "You have all of that. And I have you." They lay together, talking quietly about the day, about the ceremony, about their friends' faces. "Lauren looked happy," Preston observed. "Really happy. I think she's glad I found you. She told me I made you happy. That's all she wanted for you. She's a good person. Despite me being a terrible father, she turned out good. You get some credit for that." Preston smiled. "Maybe. Though her mother did most of the work." As night deepened, they fell into comfortable silence. Preston's breathing evened out, and Tanya thought he was asleep. Then he spoke. "Tanya? Thank you for marrying me. For choosing this life with me. It's the greatest gift I've ever received. Thank you for asking. For being brave enough to love me. Always. For as long as I have." "For as long as we have," Tanya corrected. "We're in this together now." And they were. Husband and wife. Partners in an uncertain future. But partners nonetheless, facing whatever came with love and hope and stubborn determination to make every moment count. The months after the wedding brought unexpected stability. Preston's health didn't improve dramatically, but it held steady. His liver function maintained at the same precarious level, defying medical predictions that he should have declined by now. "I've never seen anything like this," Dr. Mitchell said during one of Preston's monthly checkups, now 6 months after his initial hospitalization. "By every standard measure, you should be in hospice care by now. But your numbers are stable. Not good, but stable." "What does that mean?" Tanya asked, sitting beside Preston in the examination room, his wife of 3 months. "It means I can't give you a prognosis anymore. Maybe weeks, maybe months, maybe longer. The human body is more complex than our models can predict." Dr. Mitchell smiled. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Preston squeezed Tanya's hand. "I'm living. Really living. For the first time in my life." The newlyweds had found a rhythm. Preston was cleared for outpatient status, meaning he could live outside the hospital with regular checkups and home health care. Howard Chin had helped them find a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Tanya's neighborhood, ground floor with wheelchair accessibility in case Preston's health declined. It wasn't fancy. Nothing like the penthouses and estates Preston had owned before. But it was home. Tanya balanced her part-time nursing work with her continuing education. She was halfway through her bachelor's degree now, taking 3 classes per semester and doing well. Preston spent his days reading, learning, and most importantly, getting to know Tanya's community. He became a regular at New Hope Baptist Church, sitting in the back pew with Tanya, listening to sermons about grace and redemption. Mother Patricia made a point of welcoming him each Sunday. "Never too late to find your way to God," she told him. "You're home now." Preston also started volunteering at the community center where Tanya worked with kids. He couldn't do physical activities, but he could tutor in math and business. The teenagers responded to his directness, his real-world knowledge, his willingness to treat them like capable young adults. "Mr. Caldwell actually listens," one student, Jamal, told Tanya. "He doesn't talk down to us. He just teaches." The transformation in Preston was remarkable. The bitter, lonely man from room 427 was gone. replaced by someone engaged with life, with community, with purpose beyond profit. Lauren visited regularly now, rebuilding their relationship with patience and honesty. She and Tanya had become friends, bonding over their shared love of Preston but also discovering their own connection. "You're good for him," Lauren told Tanya one afternoon while they made dinner together in the small apartment kitchen. "I've never seen my father this peaceful. He's good for me too. I know people don't always understand our relationship, but it works for us. That's all that matters." At the 6-month mark, Preston had another round of comprehensive tests. Tanya sat with him during the blood draws and scans, both of them cautiously hopeful but trying not to expect too much. Dr. Mitchell called them in for a consultation 2 days later. She looked both puzzled and pleased. "I'm going to be honest with you," she said. "I don't fully understand what I'm seeing. Your liver is still severely damaged. But it's not getting worse. In fact, some regenerative markers suggest your liver is trying to heal itself." "Heal?" Preston leaned forward. "But I have cirrhosis. That doesn't reverse." "It usually doesn't. But in rare cases, if the damage-causing factors are removed and the patient has strong physical and emotional support, some regeneration can occur. Not full healing but stabilization and incremental improvement." "What does this mean practically?" Tanya asked. "It means Preston has moved from terminal to chronic. He'll need ongoing monitoring and care. His liver will never be fully healthy. But I'm no longer comfortable giving him a time limit. He could live for years with proper management." The room felt like it was spinning. Tanya gripped Preston's hand. "Years?" Preston's voice was barely a whisper. "Not months. I can't make promises. Medicine isn't that precise. But if this trend continues, yes, you could have years." They sat in stunned silence after Dr. Mitchell left to give them privacy. "Tanya." Preston turned to her, his eyes shining with tears. "Did she just say years?" "She said years. I could see you graduate. I could be here for your first job as a nurse practitioner. I could grow old with you at least a little bit." Tanya was crying now too, overwhelmed with relief and joy and disbelief. "You could. We could have a real life together." They held each other, both crying, both laughing, both trying to process this unexpected miracle. Over the next weeks, Preston made decisions about his future with new certainty. He'd already sold his company 6 months ago, right after their engagement. Now he worked with Howard to establish the foundation he'd been planning. The Caldwell Brooks Foundation for Healthcare Access was officially launched with $500 million in initial funding. Its mission: to provide scholarships for nursing students, grants for community healthcare initiatives, and support for families dealing with medical debt. "Named after both of us," Preston told Tanya when he showed her the incorporation papers. "Because this is our legacy together." The foundation hired its first executive director, a healthcare administrator recommended by Dr. Mitchell. Within 2 months, they'd awarded their first round of scholarships to 50 nursing students from underserved communities. "This is real," Tanya said, reading the scholarship announcements. "We're actually helping people. You inspired this. Your story, your struggles, your determination. I just had the money to make it happen." Preston also reached out to his ex-wife, Elena, for the first time in years. It was awkward, painful, but necessary. They met for coffee with Lauren present as a buffer. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Preston told Elena, an elegant woman in her 60s who still carried herself with grace. "I know I was a terrible husband. But I wanted to apologize. Formally. For all the times I chose work over you. For missing our anniversary. For not being present." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled sadly. "I appreciate that, Preston. It doesn't change the past, but I appreciate it. And I'm glad you found happiness with Tanya. Lauren has told me how different you are now. I'm trying to be better. To actually live instead of just exist." They wouldn't be friends, but they achieved a kind of peace. A recognition that they'd both moved on to different lives. As fall turned to winter, Preston's stability continued. He gained back some of the weight he'd lost, though he'd never be the robust man he'd been before his illness. His energy increased. He could take walks with Tanya now, short ones but real walks, through their neighborhood. One evening in early December, they were walking back from the community center when snow began to fall. Preston stopped, tilting his face up to catch the flakes. "I didn't think I'd see snow again," he said softly. "I didn't think I'd see another winter." Tanya stood beside him, holding his hand, watching the snow fall in the streetlight. "But you did. You're here. We're here. Together." They stood like that for a while, two people grateful for the present, hopeful about the future, aware of how precious and fragile life was. Later that night, in their small apartment with the heat radiating from old radiators and the Christmas lights Tanya had strung around the windows, Preston made an announcement. "I want to plant a garden," he said. "In the spring. I want to grow things. I've never done that before." "A garden?" "Roses. Vegetables. Whatever will grow. I want to put my hands in the dirt and nurture something living." He looked at her. "Will you help me? Will you teach me? I don't know anything about gardening. Then we'll learn together." It was such a simple dream. So ordinary and domestic. And after a lifetime of extraordinary achievements and grand ambitions, ordinary was exactly what Preston wanted. "Yes," Tanya said. "We'll plant a garden together. We'll learn together. We'll build this life together." And they would. Not a perfect life. Preston's health would always be fragile. There would be setbacks and scares. But it would be a real life. A life built on love and honesty and second chances. On New Year's Eve, Preston and Tanya stood on their small balcony, watching fireworks in the distance. Neighbors shouted and celebrated. Music drifted from nearby apartments. "A year ago I was dying alone," Preston said. "Now I'm standing here with my wife in our home with years ahead of us. How did I get this lucky? We both got lucky. We found each other." As midnight approached, they counted down with the neighborhood. 10, 9, 8. At midnight, Preston kissed his wife, tasting snow and hope and promise. "Happy New Year, Mrs. Caldwell," he whispered. "Happy New Year, Mr. Caldwell. Here's to the future. However long we have." "However long we have," Preston agreed. "And I plan to make every day count." They stood together, holding each other as the year turned, two people who'd found love in the most unlikely place, who'd chosen each other against all odds, who'd been given the precious gift of time they thought they'd never have. The wrong room had led to the right life. And they were going to live it fully, together, grateful for every ordinary extraordinary moment. 18 months after Tanya first walked into room 427, spring arrived with gentle rain and warm breezes. Preston stood in the small backyard of their apartment building, surveying the plot of earth he and Tanya had claimed for their garden. His health remained stable. Not perfect but manageable. He took medications daily, saw Dr. Mitchell monthly, and had learned to recognize the signs when his body needed rest. But he was alive. Vitally, vibrantly alive in ways he'd never been before his illness. "Okay, so the roses go here?" Preston asked, consulting the gardening book Tanya had bought. "According to the book, yes. But Mr. Kim says they need more sun, so maybe over there." Tanya pointed to the sunnier corner of their plot. Mr. Kim, who ran the corner store, had adopted Preston as his gardening protégé. The elderly Korean man had 30 years of experience growing vegetables in small urban spaces, and he'd taken it upon himself to teach Preston everything he knew. "Roses are finicky," Mr. Kim said, appearing with a tray of seedlings. "But if you're patient they reward you. Like life." Preston smiled. "Patience. I'm learning about that." They spent the morning planting. Roses in the sunny corner. Tomatoes along the fence. Herbs in containers near the back door. Preston's hands, once only familiar with keyboards and business documents, learned the feeling of soil and roots. Tanya was in her final semester of nursing school now. She'd graduate in 2 months with her BSN, already accepted into a nurse practitioner program starting in the fall. The Caldwell Brooks Foundation had awarded her one of their own scholarships, which made them both laugh at the circularity of it. "Technically, I'm paying for your education twice," Preston joked. "Technically, you're investing in healthcare access. I just happen to benefit." Lauren had moved closer, taking a job as a school principal in a neighboring district. She came by most Sundays for dinner, and the relationship between father and daughter had deepened into genuine friendship. "I never thought I'd get this," Preston had told Tanya after one of these dinners. A second chance with Lauren. The opportunity to actually be a father to her, even if it's late. It's never too late. The Caldwell Brooks Foundation was thriving. In its first year of operation, it had awarded $15 million in scholarships and grants. They'd helped over 300 nursing students and funded community health clinics in 5 underserved neighborhoods. Preston had found purpose in this work. He attended board meetings, reviewed applications, and personally called scholarship recipients to congratulate them. Each story reminded him of Tanya's story, of the barriers that kept capable people from achieving their potential. "This matters," he told Howard Chin during one of their meetings. "More than any deal I ever closed. This actually matters." Rochelle remained Tanya's closest friend and had become Preston's friend too. She brought her foster kids by sometimes, and Preston would patiently help them with homework or teach them about money management. You're good with kids, Rochelle observed one afternoon. You should have been a teacher. I'm being a teacher now. Better late than never. As spring progressed, the garden grew. The roses bloomed, deep red and fragrant. The tomato plants flourished, producing fruit by early summer. The herbs filled the air with scent. Preston spent hours in the garden, learning to nurture life instead of businesses. Tanya would join him after classes and they'd work side by side, talking about their days, making plans, being together. I never knew how satisfying this could be, Preston said one evening, holding a perfect tomato he'd grown from seed. Creating something with your hands. Watching it grow. It's like investing, Tanya teased. You put in time and resources and you get returns. Just slower and with more dirt. Preston laughed. Much slower. But somehow more rewarding. On Tanya's graduation day, Preston sat in the front row wearing a blue suit, the same one from their wedding, though it fit better now that he'd gained back healthy weight. Lauren sat beside him and Rochelle was saving seats for the church choir members who'd come to support Tanya. When Tanya walked across the stage to receive her diploma, the entire section erupted in cheers. Preston stood, clapping until his hands hurt, so proud of this woman who'd transformed his life. After the ceremony, they took pictures in the garden. Tanya in her cap and gown, Preston with his arm around her, both of them surrounded by the roses and vegetables they'd grown together. We did it, Tanya said, looking at the garden, at Preston, at their life. We actually did it. You did it? I just supported you. We did it together. Everything we've built, we did it together. That night, they celebrated with their community. The church choir sang. Mr. Kim brought Korean food. Lauren made a toast to her stepmother, a title that still made Tanya tear up. Rochelle gave a speech about persistence and faith and the power of love to transform lives. 2 years ago, Rochelle said, Tanya was drowning in debt and struggling to keep her dreams alive. Then she walked into the wrong hospital room. And that mistake, that accident, that twist of fate, it changed everything. Not just for her but for everyone in this room. Because Preston changed too. And together they've created something beautiful. A foundation that helps others. A garden that feeds the neighborhood. A love that reminds us all what's possible when we choose each other. Preston pulled Tanya close, kissing the top of her head. Best mistake I ever made, getting sick and ending up in that hospital. Best wrong room I ever walked into. As the summer progressed, Preston's health finally hit a significant milestone. 2 years post-diagnosis, Dr. Mitchell declared him stable enough for less frequent monitoring. You're officially a long-term survivor, she told them. Your liver is still compromised but it's functioning adequately. With continued care, there's no reason you can't have many more years. Many more years. The phrase that had seemed impossible 2 years ago now felt real. Preston and Tanya began to plan further into the future. They talked about maybe buying a house with a bigger yard for a bigger garden. About traveling together, taking trips Preston had always been too busy for and Tanya had never been able to afford. About the life they'd build together, ordinary and extraordinary all at once. On their second wedding anniversary, they returned to the hospital chapel where they'd been married. Pastor James met them there along with Lauren, Rochelle and Howard Chin. I wanted to renew our vows, Preston explained to Tanya. Not because the original ones weren't enough, but because we have a different future to promise to each other now. One with more time. They stood in the same spot where they'd married, wearing the same outfits, the red dress, the blue suit, and spoke new vows to each other. Preston went first. Tanya, 2 years ago I promised you every moment I had left, not knowing how many that would be. Today I promise you years. I promise you the time to build dreams together. I promise you morning coffee and evening walks and the boring beauty of ordinary days. I promise to keep growing, keep learning, keep choosing you every single day. You saved my life in every way a person can be saved. Tanya's turn. Preston, 2 years ago I married you knowing I might lose you soon. Today I marry you again knowing we have time. Time to watch our garden grow. Time to help more students through our foundation. Time to grow old together at least a little bit. I promise to love you in health and in continued healing. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your home. You showed me that it's never too late for second chances. That love can bloom in the most unexpected places. And I choose you. Always. They kissed and their small group of loved ones applauded. Afterward, they walked through the hospital to room 427. It was occupied by someone else now, a different patient with a different story. But they stood outside the door remembering. I was dying in there, Preston said softly. Lonely and bitter and convinced my life had been wasted. And I was lost out here. Working myself to exhaustion. Dreams slipping away. And then you walked through that door. And then I walked through that door. They stood in silence, honoring the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. A wrong room. A chance encounter. A conversation that became friendship that became love. Do you believe in fate now? Tanya asked, echoing the question Preston had posed that first week. Preston thought about it. I believe in choices. You chose to stay and talk to me. I chose to open up to you. We both chose to love each other despite all the reasons we shouldn't. Fate put us in the same room. But we chose everything that came after. Good choices. The best choices. They walked out of the hospital hand in hand into the late summer afternoon. Their garden was waiting at home, thriving and green. Their community was waiting, full of friends who'd become family. Their future was waiting, uncertain in its details but certain in its foundation of love. Preston Caldwell had spent 62 years building a fortune but missing life. Then he'd gotten sick. Then he'd been dying. Then a nurse had walked into the wrong room. And in that wrong room he'd finally found what he'd been looking for all along. Home. Love. Purpose. Life. Not the life he'd planned. Not the life he'd expected. But the life he was meant to have. And it was beautiful.